Today we're going to be discussing creating quality habitat for turkeys. We're going to be working on clearing some invasive species, talking about prescribed fire, and just creating diversity throughout your timber. But first, we're going to go check out the shed we just found. Oh man, this looks like a good one. Man, this might be my personal best here. Wow. What a camera. Oh. That is a good buck. Dang. Look at the character on that thing. Oh yeah. No way, guys. It's the right side of short G2. This is our #1 target here. I did not think we were going to find any of the sheds. Man, we gotta look for that left side. Look at the base on this guy. There's that short G2. You can tell by that hook down on the end too. Yes, we got it. Alright guys, so when it comes to turkeys and most wildlife species, diversity is going to be key. As you can see right now, we are standing in a clear cut. This is a micro food plot. We got clover and some cereal rye growing right now. It's greening up. Look at the rest of the woods. Looks terrible. Honeysuckle filled, just invasives, autumn olive, and lots of other just invasive species. We do have some hardwoods throughout, some quality timber, but we really need to start burning this. We need to start creating a nice transition from the food plot to everything else back here. What we're going to be doing today is going through and we're going to be cutting down honeysuckle like we have been for the last couple of years. We'll be stump treating it with Tordon. We got a pretty good mix. After we finish cutting all the honeysuckle and treating it with our Tordon mixture, we're going to be starting to make a fire break on this side of the farm, just like we have on the opposite side of the farm. As we're moving around today, we'll be showing you everything that we've been working on and what we're currently working on. We want to make fire breaks throughout this whole property, so then after the honeysuckle's cut down and treated, that we can run through here and do a prescribed fire throughout this whole property. It hasn't been done probably ever. This property was logged. So one time it was logged, but now it's pretty much just closed canopy and invasive species. When we purchased this farm 4 years ago, we began clearing out food plots. We began cutting timber. We started doing small prescribed fires, but there's so much leaf litter and there's so much just invasive species. We didn't want to get too crazy before we got a lot of this cut down. We've got some locusts we need to get rid of. We've got some hedge we need to get rid of. You could say this property is kind of a mess. Not necessarily a bad thing though when it comes to deer hunting. There's a lot of cover on this farm and there's a lot of places for these deer to feel comfortable moving through. The unfortunate part was when we bought it, there wasn't much for food. There's a lot of agriculture surrounding us, but we don't have a lot of food on this farm. So what I did, came in, started making these little 1/8 acre to 1/4 acre food plots. We now have one as large as 1 acre, but we want to really improve the turkey hunting on this farm. And to do that, we're going to need diversity. We're going to need open hardwood areas for them to strut and to breed. We're going to need short brood habitat for the poults. We're going to need nesting sites. So we're going to need to run fire through here, and we've got to tackle this invasive species that are on this property. So we're going to move out of this food plot, up the timber, and we're going to show you guys where we're cutting. This is where we're doing most of our cutting right now. So pond's all thawed out, but we're working on the top of this ridge up there, and we're going to work our way down, just removing all the honeysuckle out of here, and then we'll run a fire from up there down to this water hole. It'll be nice to have this nice and cleared out and just green and lush through here for the turkeys to come down. We've gotten a lot of this exposed down here. We've been working on a trail system. but it's time to start working on this hillside. So today we'll start cutting, treating with Tordon. We have some videos on our channel already of us doing this with like detailed instruction of what to do and what to look for. Today is just going to be us running through here, clearing this out, and then moving on to the next section to show you what we're doing, because we want diversity. So what I mean is that we want some areas that are going to be lush and green, some areas where it's a little more thick, creating side cover. Some areas I don't even mind leaving it open hardwoods where there's a canopy, because I don't want to remove all of that. You need to think about what turkeys are looking for. Toms want strut zones. They want places up on the high ground, up on a ridge where they can see far and they can fan out for the hens. So don't want to remove all of that. You just want to create pockets throughout your whole farm of different types of quality habitat for them. So that's the key. So let's get this knocked out and then we're going to move over to those hardwoods. As you can see from the video, we got about probably 30 or 40 more years worth of cutting to do up here. That's not even a joke. It's gonna be a long project. But let's talk about another way of removing undesirable or invasive species. Obviously you can cut, spray with Tordon. It's pretty wet up here, so a lot of this stuff, the smaller stuff, you can just reach down, pull it right out of the ground. Well, let's talk about things like locust and hedge. These are a mess. As you can see, I really don't want to be cutting this tree. This tree is full of thorns, so a good method would be to go around and girdle it. We'll do a double girdle. We're going to cut a ring around it, cut another ring around it, and then put Tordon in it to terminate this tree. This tree will just die standing straight up. Eventually it'll rot out, fall down on the ground. We can come back up here, clean it up then. That's a good, safe way of tackling this. Things like hedge is super hard and it's kind of springy, so it can be kind of dangerous to cut down. It's not very predictable on what it's going to do, and I've had them kick off the stump and all sorts of crazy stuff. So hedge is one. You have to just be very careful, and if you don't feel comfortable cutting it down, you might hire somebody to cut it down. But as far as things like locust trees or honeysuckle shrubs, they're pretty easy. The shrubs, you can just cut them, spray a little Tordon. These, if you don't feel like cutting them down, just girdle them, kill them, come back later, clean it up. That's pretty much what this whole hillside here is, unfortunately. It's just invasives, it's just honeysuckle, locust, and hedge, and it's a mess. And there are some hardwoods. There's some cherry up here. I'm also seeing some ash. A lot of our ash is dying. As a lot of you probably know, that ash borer is killing a lot of ash trees. So got a lot of rotten ash. We do have some decent cherry up here, but there's not a bunch of oak or anything real desirable on this hillside. So what I'd really like to do is clear all this out, get it nice and open through here, get some good native growth in here, and then start doing a prescribed fire regimen, maybe every couple years or every other year. Just get this nice and lush all the way down to that timber pond. This will be a really pretty spot for toms to come strut on this high top, and they'll be able to work their way down to that water hole down there. So good way to remove these, to remove a lot of this. If you got some buddies that owe you some money, or they owe you a favor, that's the trick right there. Get them to come out and clear invasives, because it's not hard to do, but it's time consuming, and man, does it take a long time. If I don't get some guys out here to help me out, I'm going to be working on this for quite a few years. So guys, we're going to move over to the hardwood stand, and we're going to show you what we're doing over there. Alright, traveling to the top of this oak flat here now. As you can see behind me, you notice that we're starting to transition from that thick invasive understory that we had to more of an open hardwoods canopy type forest. And that's exactly what this is. This is literally just an oak ridge up here. We have sawtooth oaks, white oaks, red oaks, bur oak. There's lots of different species of oak up here. We do want to open up the canopy a little bit, get some sunlight in here so we can get some good growth on the forest floor. But I also don't want to completely open this up because it's kind of nice to have a strut zone. So keep that in mind on your property. Are there places that you see turkey generally go to every single spring to strut or scratch? Why is that? You need to go up there and investigate, what they're eating, what they're doing, and what they're using that area for before you go in and start cutting. So we will do some select cuts up here, but I am not going to get too crazy with the chainsaw. I really like this area for what it is. It's a good transition from thick cover to just a clear opening. It's probably not ideal for deer as far as cover goes, but we still have a lot of our target bucks cruise through here in daylight due to the acorns. And also, we can start to kind of work this edge of this ridge top, and we could do things like either felling or hinge cutting and create some side cover around this so that there's a hard transition from the opening to where it gets thick. So those are some practices that you guys can implement in areas where you have more of a closed canopy. But I like diversity, and I like there to be a variety of different types of hardwoods, different ages of trees, and then going from like a closed canopy area like this to a thicker, more woody browse area. So we're going to get up top here and we'll show you what it looks like where these turkeys typically are scratching and strutting, and it's just such a cool area. They're always bugging around up here and looking for acorns, and that's exactly why we're not going to remove any of these oaks. That being said, if there are some oaks that look like they're struggling, there's nothing wrong with getting rid of an oak tree. Just because it is a mass producing tree, and you hear oftentimes you need to hunt where the oaks are, as far as big bucks go. If that oak's never going to produce an acorn, there's nothing wrong with getting rid of it. And if anything, it's going to help out your good oaks that are starting to flourish and that are producing. It's that crop tree release where you cut down a lot of the crummier trees around your really good producing trees, and that allows that tree to just do that much better. All right, we're up on top of the flat now, and this is exactly what I was talking about. As soon as we got up here, we're running into scratching literally everywhere. I can see the claw marks. I'll walk around and show you guys. Just what you're looking for when you're on these oak ridges. Open there. See what I'm talking about? This is what they're looking for. And they're coming through here and they're scratching these areas. Every single one of these is full of acorns. So when you're walking through your timber and you're scouting for turkeys, look at all these areas. You need to be keeping in mind what kind of food they're looking for and what you can do to this area to make it better. You see this is nice and open. We opened all that up so we get good sunlight. That way, even in the summer when everything's leafed out, it's still getting good sunlight. So there's nothing wrong with coming through and creating little pockets here and there along this ridge to get good sunlight in here. And also, it's definitely going to help when we come through here and we burn all this leaf litter off this ridge after we get all this to green up right underneath of this hardwood canopy. I know we're going to need some sunlight to encourage that green growth. That's exactly why there's nothing wrong with creating some pockets like this where you're going to encourage that sunlight to come through. But just remember, increased sunlight, you're going to increase the amount of invasive species that you have in this area. So you need to be ready to tackle that before it gets out of control like the rest of the property. You oftentimes anymore hear people say that you need to get rid of all canopy and you need to go through the woods and you need to get everything cleared out and let it all regrow in understory. But that sounds great until it comes back an invasive species, which also is going to canopy out the forest floor. and then you're going to have no food and you're going to be tackling that. Or right now I'm having these hardwoods kind of suppress the non-native species in this area from coming through here and flourishing. And as soon as I do a tree release, I'm going to start getting some honeysuckle. So just keep that in mind when you guys are doing clear cuts. I do a lot on this farm, but I'm also tackling a lot of invasive species too. Thanks for tuning in on this week's episode, guys. Now that turkey season's underway and we're bouncing back and forth between states, we're going to be switching back and forth between our turkey hunting episodes and our habitat episodes. Thanks again.